Dude, I love shredding the gnar, man. Bootering off the pow, stomping in front of some gapers, dude. Getting real steez with it. 'Tis the season. Going downhill fast on snow has been around since 6000 BCE in Russia, but the use of two ski poles didn't start until 1741. Before that, skiers had a spear or bow and arrow with them so they could hunt while on skis. I can barely stand on skis, so I think that's incredible. Anyway, there are 4 NES games where going downhill fast on snow is all you gotta do. Slalom, Ski or Die, Winter Games, and Heavy Shreddin. Whether it's skiing or snowboarding, today's video is all about shredding some fresh gnar and dodging trees. Let's see what's up. Slalom is an arcadey skiing game where your goal is to complete a set of courses, each with a narrow time limit in order to move on. On your trip downhill, you'll encounter other skiers and trees you must dodge, rocks you can use as ramps to get some lift, and snowmen that look more like yetis that are simply standing around with nothing to do. At the start, you have a choice between 3 different mountains of increasing difficulty. Snowy Hill is the easiest, Mount Nasty is medium, and Steep Peak is the most difficult and somehow the nastiest of all. Each of these mountains has 8 different slopes, totaling 24 different courses in the game. Survive each time trial without failure, and you win. When you complete a course, you move on to the next, which adds more difficulty. Difficulty is increased by the number of turns on the course, the spacing of the flags you have to ski between, and the number of obstacles in your path. You can score some bonus points by doing tricks in the air, though the freestyling is hardly free and is as limited here as you'd expect. By pressing down on the D-pad after you ramp off a mogul, or rock, you perform a series of freestyle tricks for the length of time you're airborne and accrue bonus points. The bonus points aren't all for style and do come in handy after each event, as they determine the number of seconds in the next run that no obstacles will appear in your way. So that's neat. Despite being a Nintendo black box game, Slalom was developed by Rare and was actually the first game they ever developed. The music was even composed by Rare's legendary David Wise, someone often mentioned on this channel. Slalom controls really well, looks great for being an early NES game, plus I love that 80s Slalom logo. It graduates in difficulty nicely, and gives a decent feel of speed. While limited to just skiing downhill, it's a well-made game that makes for a decent time either by yourself or with a friend. Much like its Skate or Die cousins I'll cover one day on this channel, Ski or Die is a game of multiple events. There's of course snowboarding in the halfpipe, aerials, inner tubing, mountain skiing, and my favorite, a snowball fight. You can choose to practice each event individually or compete in them sequentially, and like other games on the NES with multiple events, playing against the CPU offers no competition. If you want to have a feeling of winning anything, you'll need to play against someone else. Ski or Die sometimes can't decide if it's trying to give you a representative experience, or if it's trying to be a little silly. In the snowboarding halfpipe, everything is mostly representative of snowboarding. You make your way to the edge of the pipe and use a combination of button presses to do tricks like double twists, ollies, hand grabs, and so on. The tricks you can do also depend on how fast you're going, indicated by the meter in the top center. Sprinkled in the halfpipe are silly obstacles like punk penguins, rabbits with chainsaws, and logs. All said, this is of the more fun events in the game. Next is a downhill ski event where the only thing silly about it is how difficult it is, and the fact you can land on a roof. Aside from that, it's full of difficult to navigate narrow passages, trees for you to smash into, and when to jump for doing tricks isn't always apparent. Not a fun event. Then, with the inner tubing event, it's back to being silly. You face off against another inner tuber down a snowy mountain, and you can pick up objects like forks, lawn darts, and pocket knives to use against your opponent. If they get close enough, you can gig them and pop their inner tube. The amount of air in your tube is indicated at the bottom, so if you start getting flat, you have to pick up patches or air compressors to reinflate. Again, nothing but silly in this event, but it's a little too basic to be much fun. Now to aerials, where silly is once again abandoned for something more representative. Here, you smash buttons for speed, and then once in the air, you hold A and press a number of different directions to experiment with tricks. You can do a few different tricks here, like the Daffy, Spread Eagle, or Back Scratch, and why not try them all at once? It's a challenge to determine which ones you can complete before you safely land, which you'll need to do by completing all your tricks and reorienting your skis before impact. The trick inputs feel a little laggy here, so it takes some getting used to. The manual diagrams the tricks you can do and the button combinations you'll need to input for doing them, so that's helpful. Then there's the snowball fight, which is beyond silly, but it's pretty fun. You're in some kind of fort in the center of a field and kids come from all directions and launch snowballs at your face. Your job is to pelt them with snowballs and take them out instead, and it's great. The manual says you're guarding all the snacks before dinner, but the kids are hungry now and want to wipe you out for the munchies, so that's pretty fun. You can shift your view in one of 4 directions indicated by the radar on the bottom. The numbers in each quadrant indicate how many kids are there chucking snowballs at you, so you zip between each view and carefully aim at the kids with your reticle and take them out with a snowball. If you're lucky, you might see a bear or a Yeti walk by. The main hub of the game is a ski shop where you'll interact with crazy-eyed Rodney. There's nothing special here, just a neat way to let you choose whether you want to practice, compete, or check out high scores. Ski or Die has its moments, but wears thin as a single-player experience. Bring a friend along for the ride and stab their inner tube a few times to maximize the fun. Winter Games is easily the most lame of the games here today. More akin to Ski or Die than Slalom, Winter Games has 4 events in this Olympic-themed cash-in. To start, you get to see the opening ceremony, which they were evidently proud of because you can select to watch it again from the menu after it's over. You select your number of players, 1 or 2, the country you would like to represent, and enter a 4-letter name. Like Ski or Die, unless you're playing against the second player, there's nothing to beat or measure yourself against. You can set high scores, but they'll just reset after you turn off the game. You can choose to compete in all the events, 1 event, or practice 1 event. Practice lets you try an event as many times as you want without consequence, and competing in the event limits the number of trials and is the only way you can record a high score, like that matters. The first event is hot dog aerials, which is like aerials in the last game, but here they sound more delicious. After looking it up, I learned that in the early 80s, freestyle skiing didn't have a name, so they called it hot dog aerials. The game kept this nomenclature despite the Winter Games of '88, for which this game was developed, did use freestyle skiing as the proper event title. Learn something new every video. Here it's basically the same as the Ski or Die version. You ramp off, do a couple tricks in the air before landing, and then have a bunch of faceless folks judge you for it. It's tough to impress them though, and the event lasts about 20 seconds total after 3 tries. The next event is speed skating. Unless you play 2-player, you'll have a pace skater in the other window for you to race against. This one is probably the trickiest to get the hang of. You mash left and right to pick up speed, then you have to rock the D-pad back and forth left and right in rhythm to maintain that speed. Nailing that rhythm can be the tricky part, but you'll eventually get the hang of it. This event lasts about a minute and you get just 1 shot at it, so good luck. Next is figure skating, and props to this game for attempting to put figure skating in a video game. This is the event that people often complain the most about, but it's really not that bad to get the hang of. Even if you figure it out though, it's not fun or anything. Essentially you press A in a direction on the D-pad to do a trick, then hold down A again until you land it. You can only do certain tricks depending on the direction you're facing, but once again, the judges are hard to please. You have to creatively jam-pack as many tricks as possible into 1 minute. If you fall, you get points subtracted, as you'd expect. Then lastly is what could have been the most fun event in the game but ends up being the lamest of all, bobsled. Here your screen is mostly a map of the bobsled's route and you get a little speedometer that you really can't manipulate, and a small window view of what's up ahead. All you do is press left or right depending on the way the route takes you, and that's it. And you have to do it 3 times, each trial taking about a minute. So boring. While I never expected much from this game, it's basically apparent the developers didn't expect much either. The sound design is grating, as the only music you get comes from the figure skating, so you'd better enjoy nearly 3 uninterrupted minutes of a bobsled, or the skitter-scatter of skis in the race. Winter Games is simply not worth anyone's time.
Hey, new Nintendo game, Heavy Shreddin, hot snowboard action. Sure. The widow run, yow! Shreddin the half pipe, rocket air! Yo! Totally vertical! Yahoo! Hand plant, awesome! Kamikaze snowboarder, yo! I'm carving this baby!
The new Heavy Shreddin game for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
It is hot!
Now to the most grueling game on the list, You don't get to choose your events as in Ski or Die. You have to earn them by completing them in order within the time limit and without faltering. The first event is a downhill slope to get you used to the controls and to train you on the level of frustration you're about to endure. You could say the game is all downhill from here. Yeah. You can move in the path to dodge obstacles or press A to jump over them, not too bad. Next is the Slalom. Not unlike the previous event, but now you have to aim yourself between flags and around more trees, and tree hit detection here is not great, and also nothing is great. The game is a little harder at this point, but it's not too bad. But here comes the half pipe, which I hardly understand. I know how half pipes work, and I can even do some tricks, but I cannot figure out how to land them consistently, and not landing them costs a life. Try after try after try, game over after game over, having to go back through the previous 2 stages to get back to here, and still, I could not make it work. It has taken years from my life. There are 2 more level types, one where you jump over moguls, a fancy name for rocks, and do tricks, and another called backwoods where you have to dodge 23 different obstacles according to the manual, and each has its own special set of instructions for overcoming it. There are 18 total stages with each of the level types I described to you repeating, but with more difficulty. And to irritate you even more than it already has, there are intermissions between each event where other skiers get in your way and wipe you out. This game, man. Heavy Shreddin wouldn't be nearly as bad if it didn't have such a strict game over rule set. Some continues or a practice option would go a long way here. Instead, after 4 fails, you get a game over and you start back on the first downhill course. If you do manage to make it through the agonizing difficulty of the game because you entered, let's say, a 99 lives code, or you used a level select code, you are greeted with a trophy and this picture of a woman. Well, thanks. Does anyone recognize her? The music of Heavy Shreddin isn't terrible, but you better get used to it. The game is relentless and not really worth your time. Among these 4, the one with the most simple concept of all is my favorite, and that's Slalom. It does one thing basically, but it does it pretty well. Ski or Die is great because the different game modes give you and a second player some options to mess with. Plus, who doesn't love a freaking snowball fight? Winter Games is essentially 4 mini-games that take about a minute each to master and offers next to no reward for doing so. And as for Heavy Shreddin, well, if you are blessed with endless patience, then yeah, it's probably not so bad, but even then, yeah, it's not great. Well, that does it for skiing and snowboarding games on the NES. Seriously, don't bully kids by stealing their snacks, and thanks for watching.